Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back. So for all you speed freaks out there with your RCs, I've got a new gearing system for you guys to try out, and I'm pretty damn sure that this is the way to go for total max out. Now, you guys have been playing around with 32 pitch and Mod 1 gearing, 48 pitch, and even the fastest bandit right now is like 120 some mile an hour, 128 mile an hour, I guess, or somewhere around that neighborhood. Anyway, and the fastest rustler is about almost 150 miles an hour. I think we can do better and with less power, okay? But it's going to require a few things. Number one, I'm going to show you my bandit. Now, GRP tires we know are larger diameter rims, okay? Of course, they don't balloon either, which is a big, huge benefit because you don't want that ballooning to take place. But larger diameter on the back, definitely a good idea. Larger footprint does mean that you don't need as much throttle to go faster, okay? So that's good. That means we can generate more speed sooner with less power required, okay? But what you got to do is go to a smaller tire on the front. This is going to take weight off your car, okay? And you got to bring your nose down a bit, okay? You got to have an angle going downward. It's going to help keep your front end on the ground, okay? Also, forget putting weights up here. I've tried it so many times, it does not work. You got to have all the weight right at the very front, okay? Now, just a shout out for RC Johnny. Thank you, buddy, for that weight. It's down below. And now I got my other weights here on top. Now I've stacked them because I've had these things on and off different positions. And now I'm using dollar store double-sided tape, which doesn't stick worth a crap on this thing. So I figured, let's just zip tie them all together after we stick them together. And this creates a nice big block right in the center of the bumper. You don't want your weight off to either side because it makes you kilter, okay? You may not physically see it, but it will kilter. So you want to get that weight dead center, okay? It's got to be perfectly centered. Now, your body needs to be very aerodynamic. So whatever body you're using on your bandit, your rustler, whatever, it has to be aerodynamic. So it can not only cut through the wind, but as it is cutting in through the wind can hit the front and push you down, okay? You need to stay pushed down. Very, very important to keep your nose on the ground because these two-wheel drive vehicles are very bad that when they start to get a lot of speed, they start to lift, and as a result, you go flying backwards. So you want to prevent that. Now, I wouldn't recommend putting a brick on here like I did because that creates a wind blockage. It's like coming against a wall. It just boof, hits you type of thing. So you want to try and keep things as low profile as you possibly can. So even if you scattered your bars across, as long as you got that heavy weight at the front. Now, you don't want to go too heavy, so you got to experiment with, X amount of weight at a time with your gearing that you're going to use to keep your front end on the ground, because that's the goal here. Front end on the ground, maximize your speed, still control your vehicle. Voila, okay? Now, I have no problems believing that you can accomplish 200 plus miles an hour on a 3S battery, even with a Valenion system, if it's geared right, okay? But you're also going to need some pretty damn powerful batteries, which is a big thing. You got to have high discharge rate batteries. Your ESC will burst for X amount of time at its burst rate of amperage, okay? Now, the more you overgear your car, the more your motor is going to draw. And it can only draw so much before you're going to cook it, too. So keep that in mind. So try and do this in baby steps until you get to that maximum allowable heat range for your motor and ESC, even with having fans installed on your motor and on your ESC. If you cannot install a fan on your motor for some reason because of being rear-wheel drive, at least get a cooling fin of some sort on it to help dissipate that heat a lot, okay? But definitely if you can mount a fan in there, get a fan going on it. Get a fan going on your ESC. Make sure that, they're 3S fans, and use a very, very small 3S, say, 600 milliamp or 900 milliamp battery. It's all you need to run those fans for a long run time on those fans, okay? And you got to keep this weight down. You got to keep the weight off your car, okay? Which is another reason why you go to smaller diameter front wheels too. It's also a weight issue because as those wheels are spinning, they generate energy, okay, and weight of their own, okay? But they also as the wind is shooting through the rims, okay, it creates too much of a wind force to slow the vehicle down. And your smaller diameter tire isn't going to slow you down on the front, okay? Not one bit, okay? Your back tires is your pushers, all right? Now, they need to be the little bit slightly larger diameter to generate a little bit more speed too with your gearing, right? But you don't want to go too big of a back tire, otherwise you ain't moving anywhere anytime soon. Now keep in mind, this gearing system I'm about to tell you about is also going to require a really super long runway, so you may have to upgrade from your Traxxas radial gear to something much better that can get you that extra range you're going to need to get this thing at top speed. Now I understand for you guys in the 70 plus mile per hour club, you're limited to what, about a 3900 kilovolt motor? Let's say you're at 3800 kV. Okay, now you times that by 11.1 volts. Okay, because that's your 3-cell battery. That's going to generate 42,180 RPM, no load. That's not even a pinion gear hooked up to the motor. That's just a no load speed is what that motor is going to do for you. Okay, now you are not going to get 42,180 RPM out of that motor with the weight of your vehicle and everything. Also keep in mind that even the Castle 3800 motor, you cannot have that motor in a car that weighs above 6 pounds. If you are over 6 pounds, you will more than likely damage that motor and possibly take your ESC with it. Okay, so you want to make sure that you keep the weight down, but keep your car profiled properly and proper enough weight on there to keep that nose down. Okay, very, very important. Aerodynamics is everything for speed. Okay, other than weight and everything else we've been talking about. The other thing you're going to need is high discharge rate 3S battery. Now, what I would probably suggest would be your ultimate battery setup would be to get a couple of small, thin profiled 3S nanotech batteries, okay, that have about 100C discharge, or even 90C would be great, okay, and at about probably 4,000 milliamp a piece, right? Tie them together in parallel. This way the voltage still stays at 3S, but you double your milliamps, you double your discharge. So on your peak discharge of 90C a piece, okay, that's 180C, okay, times that by 8,000 milliamps, divide that number by 1,000, you're going to be able to create 1,440 amps that those batteries can provide. That is way more than even the Valenion ESC is going to require. Okay, even between it and your motor, it's more than enough. Now, that means that you can burst those batteries for probably 40 seconds, 30, 40 seconds, okay? But can you burst your ESC that long? That's the big thing. What is the burst time on your ESC at its maximum amperage? Okay, so this is where you got to watch. And with speed running, no matter what, you're going to overgear the shit out of this thing, which is what I'm going to show you. You're going to need time to build that speed up to full speed, okay? But you better get to as close as, you better get to full throttle soon, but not too soon, okay? You know what I mean? Because you don't want to put the whole system into a big surge to try and rocket that thing through, and then you run out of burst time, because otherwise you start blowing ESCs, motors. You know, if you overdraw from the batteries for too long, you're going to cook them too. So you got to keep all these factors in mind. Now, here's the gearing I'm going to show you. Now, we all know that when you put a small pinion against a big spur, you're getting nowhere. Okay, it's all about torque, no speed. Okay, when you take a bigger pinion to a big spur, you're going to generate more speed. That's common sense. That's the laws of physics. That's how it works. No question about it. And the closer you get to a 1-to-1 ratio, okay, which will require some motor mount mods, of course, to fit a larger spur in there, or sorry, a larger pinion, okay, which means cutting the slot groove deeper in your back motor mount to create more motor movement space till you can come out to the maximum limit of that motor shell at the back. Okay, it also may mean you may have to get a special motor mount made to get rid of that back area a bit. Who knows, okay, but what you want to do here is to forget everything you've already been taught, everything you already know, and we're going to go a little different route. We're now going to put the biggest, baddest ass pinion, even if you have to have a a special mount made for this spur to turn this spur into a pinion, which would be ideal and cheap because these are like $3 each. But you can get somebody with a lathe to make you a special mount for this to turn this into a pinion. Then you're going to get the smallest pinion that you can fit on that 5mm shaft on the transmission side. Okay, so now you have no more slipper clutch. You have no more slipper pad, none of that shit, okay? Because now you're going to use a pinion as a spur, right? Because when you go onto this side of the fence, you bring your spur, which is now a pinion, or get a big pinion. Integy has a 67-tooth, 64-pitch pinion, so then get their smallest 64-pitch pinion against that, and you're going to have a really good ratio too, but that's still not going to max you out. You got to go big. Go big or go home, right? So when you look at the revolutions that you're going to be able to go, line up your grub screw hole. Do this yourself so you know what I'm talking about, okay? And line up, say, 48 pitch or even, you know, however many teeth, whichever. Get it centered. Center it here, okay? Now, what you're going to do is you're going to hold this just enough so that you're pinching your pinion gear, this one here, and just enough that it can rotate. And you're going to rotate this one against it. And you're going to see that you don't have to hardly move any teeth at all, and you've done a full revolution. You haven't even come to, you didn't even do a quarter revolution on this, and you've already done one on this. Okay, so now your whole gear ratio has changed. Now you can generate speed, guys, because you do need a little bit of torque to get your car moving, but a little bit, right? What you need is top end speed. And even the Mod 1 gearing cannot accomplish this, okay? You have to go at it this way. And the finer the teeth, like the 48 pitch, for example, you can fit more teeth on one of these. You can get this in a 90 tooth, okay? So, and probably higher yet. And you go to a small pinion, using that as the spur. But the thing is, you got to watch the pinions too, right? Because you have to have a 5mm bore here, okay? Now, this 22 tooth pinion, there's enough meat you can bore that out to 5mm on a lathe, and you'll be able to make use of this pinion. Now that's 22. We want to try and drop it as low as 11 teeth, 12 teeth, okay, for the transmission side. Now the Traxxas Summit has 32 pitch gearing, and its smallest pinion is on it from the factory. Okay, they've chosen to use a 14 tooth. I'm sure there is smaller. But what they use is a 14 tooth. It's got a 5mm bore. Why? Because the big ass engine too, right? So it's got a big shaft. It's got a 5mm shaft. Now this 48 pitch pinion doesn't have the meat to drill that out to 5mm and still be able to lock it down with a grub screw. Because the other thing is you're also going to need to make a flat spot on your shaft for that grub screw to lock into so it doesn't spin around your shaft. So this is more modding you're going to need to do. But it's not costing you much. Even to have somebody with a lathe make you up an adapter to turn this into a pinion use, okay, and even the 90 to slip in place, I mean, that could cost you maybe $20-30 for somebody to do that for you, right? No big deal. It's not a huge investment, okay? So, but it's doable, okay? Because now you're creating more revolutions on your tranny by going small, small to big, big. Okay, going this way, even a 1-to-1 50-to-50 is not going to generate you speed on 3S like this sort of setup would, going big to small this way, okay? So, think about this, guys. Logically, according to physics, according to my eyeballs, according to the mathematics, this does work. But your heat temps are going to go up, so you got to watch your heat temps. Now, every machine, you could take a whole lineup of 100 different machines, all using, say, these exact two gears. Now, if all the machines are set up precisely the same, there's going to be pluses and minuses, okay? Because of weight ratios and whatever type of thing, right? Kilovolt a motor is also going to dictate your speed too on the top end. Now, some people say, well, the higher the kilovolt I go, the more speed I can produce. Well, you can produce a lot of RPM, because if you go 11.1 volts times 3,800 kilovolt, that's 42,180 RPM. Now, if you take a 9,000 kilovolt motor, times that by 11.1 volts, Now you're talking 99,900 RPM if that motor can run 3S. Now if it can only run 2S, 9,000 times 7.4 volts, 66,600 RPM on 2S. Okay, now 66,600 on 2S at 9,000 kilovolts compared to a 3,800, that's a huge increase in speed there. Okay, but you're also looking, it's also a very low turn rate motor too, right? And you want to make sure that you're using a lower turn rate. Probably ideally 8.5 turn, okay, to no more than probably 10 turn, okay, tops, right, for a brushless system. And you know, but what you don't want to do is start running into 2,000 kilovolt sized motors like your 1/8 scale motors at the 5 mil shafts, because then you're just having to put honking amounts of voltage through, which means your car is going to weigh a ton, and you'll never accomplish the kind of RPMs and stuff you need to in order to get to those top speeds, because you won't even get to those top speeds because the damn car is going to weigh too friggin' much. Okay, so you need to keep front end down, everything profiled, wind resistance the correct way, smaller tires on the front, the larger GRPs on the back, and you got to make sure you got tread. You got to have tread, guys. You also do not ever want to speed run on cold pavement, because you will break loose all the time. You will not be able to handle that car at super high speeds. It will wipe itself out, okay? So you need warm asphalt, okay? And that may also mean spinning your tires too and doing a burnout first to warm that rubber up on your tires to grip better to the asphalt as well, to maximize traction on your rear end, because your rear end brakes on you when you're doing over 140, 150, 180 mile an hour. Bye-bye! Your car is destroyed. You guys should know that by now. A lot of yous I know have smashed the shit out of your cars. That's the gearing ratios that I'm talking about doing. That's how I'm telling you to think outside the box now. I have never seen anybody on YouTube even think about this idea. So, you know, I've seen Mod 1, I've seen 32, I've seen 48 pitch, I've seen all kinds of gearing setups, ratios. I've seen speeds that are even crazy on the little cars that people are driving and stuff, right? They're getting those up like, 170, 180 mile an hour. And those cars are going to be super limited, because they can't fit the huge gears in them, right? Like you look at my HSP Jeep monster truck, it's got a 2164 gearing ratio, okay? Now, I can't get a bigger spur. I've checked. I can't find anything bigger yet anyways, not yet, bigger than 64 teeth. So I got to work based on pinions. Now, that car is geared high enough as it is. Even on 2S, it's crazy. 3S, it's mental. And I'm sitting here with my Bandit going, thinking my Bandit's friggin' fast. And this thing's even, it's really fast, right? So, but I can go like a 31. Easy. I might even be able to squeeze like a 38 tooth pinion into that area because I have the motor mount room coming back toward me, no problem, okay? So I can fit bigger pinions in that and really get that thing to rocket, okay? But it's also a very heavy vehicle too in comparison to the Bandit. So what kind of speeds am I going to get on 2 and 3S, right? That's the thing. So got to consider that. But for you Bandit guys, Rustler guys, etc., this is the kind of gearing I'm talking about doing. You got to have really small on the tranny and really big on the motor, okay? And you can generate a lot more speed than ever seen before anywhere. So even the guy who holds the record now for the world's fastest Bandit at 128 mile an hour, okay, and so far I think the fastest Rustler is 144 mile an hour. This kind of a gearing ratio, even going 86 to a 12, okay, if you can jam a 12, or an 86-14 even, an 86-14 is going to blow the living doors off that machine, and you're only going to be running 3S. Okay, that's the thing. That's what you got to look at, the big picture. And that's the kind of gearing and speed I'm thinking this should produce. I'm not going to guarantee you nothing here, so don't yell at the messenger. But it makes absolute perfect sense when you hold those two gears, you rotate this one to that one, to the small one, you're going a lot more revolutions. And what do you need for speed? Revolutions. You need RPM. Boom, 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 boom. You're not getting RPM if this is your big side and you're going, okay, it's not going to happen, okay? 50 to 50, it's not going to happen like it will going big to small, okay? Think that way. It's logical. It makes perfect sense. The math lines up. You know, I just don't know the exact top speeds, but for sure you're definitely going to break the world's record with the Bandit guy. That's for sure. I saw his gearing, you know, and I'm thinking, okay, that looks about the size of a quarter. That looks about the size of a nickel. And he got 128 mile an hour of it. That's pretty damn respectable, okay, for his setup. And from the looks of it, he was running a Castle motor. I didn't know the kilovolt of it. I don't even know what battery he was running in his Bandit, okay? But what I can tell you is these are ways to achieve the goals, okay? And to supersede any fastest speed records out there right now on a Bandit and a Rustler, etc. If you do this kind of a thing, that should get you cooking. Now, for you little race car guys, okay, and I'm going to be one of you soon, okay, not as far as clubs go, but I'm going to be buying a couple little race cars and drift cars and stuff. Now, what I'm thinking is getting closer to that 1-to-1 ratio on the cars is a good idea, because that's going to generate a lot of top speed. And those cars are very low to the ground. As you guys know, they got like minuscule ground clearance, right? And these guys are setting these cars up with bodies that keep them planted. You know, you got to keep that car planted on the ground, especially at these high speeds. You don't want it going, fing! You know, like the Traxxas X01, 100 mile an hour car, you know? And, I mean, unless you do the proper setups with it, with the gearing for it, for the speed, and you put the little special little fin things and shit on it, I mean, you're still seeing guys flip that car at 100 miles an hour. Why? Because it doesn't have the weight on the front properly, okay? It needs some weight, okay? But that's another car altogether, and it uses, I believe, Mod 1 gearing, the X01, you know, and it's like, Mod 1, joke, big, small, real fast, okay? Think about it. Thanks for watching. Catch you on the next video.